Be whoever you need to be with Vital.
So it's that time of the morning when we look at nutrition along with Andrea from Vital. But before we look at that, take a look at this. Did you know that the word salary is actually derived from the word salt? Because way back in the day, ancient Roman soldiers were paid in salt. Now, of course, these days, salt isn't as valuable to your pocket, but it still is very, very important to your diet. And we want to know why that is. So, Andrea, why is salt so important to us?
Well, salt definitely forms a big part of our diet, and it being World Salt Awareness Week, we look at the role of salt in our diet and where we need to make some changes.
Yes. And I see you've brought a whole array of things here. Starting off, let's say, over here in front of the table, there's different kinds of salt that we kind of use on a daily basis.
That's correct, yes. There's the normal coarse sea salt, normal table salt, the Himalayan pink salt. Then there are 2 stock cubes there that many people use to flavour their foods with, and then also vegetable salt.
Yeah.
Now, with all of those are rich in salt. As soon as there's, like with the pink Himalayan salt, that represents extra minerals in there. And with the vegetable salts or the stock, there's some extra vegetable extracts, but still lots of salt. So for people with high blood pressure, they need to be aware of their salt intake and try to reduce it.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the rest of the display here, I've got foods that we often eat that are very rich in salt. Now, we all know that potato chips are quite salty. And then biltong, because it tastes salty, yes, that's also quite salty.
Yes.
But if you look at the feta cheese and olives, we regard those as health foods because we put them in our salads. But if you suffer with high blood pressure, don't overindulge, because even though they're healthy, they're loaded with salt.
Yes.
Bread, you would think that there isn't any salt in there.
Yeah, because you don't really taste it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see, because we eat so much salt in our diets, we don't really taste it that easily.
Oh, wow.
Because your body or your taste buds become used to the salty taste. And even something like, well, apart from the fact that lots of salt is added into bread when they make it, tinned peas contains added, wait for it, sugar and salt.
Wow.
Just to enhance the flavour.
Yeah.
So we should be aware of the fact that the foods we eat often contain lots of added salt. And that's where we've got this grinder here. Even though it's beautiful and people love using a grinder, those big coarse grains of salt add lots of extra sodium to our diets. And if you have high blood pressure, that may be a bit too much.
Yeah. Now, you said something very interesting, that your taste buds get used to the salt. So
That's
does that
correct.
imply that it's something that you slowly get, you develop?
Yes, you can actually manipulate your taste for salt, the taste sensation. So in other words, the more salt you use in your food, the more you would want to add to your food.
Wow.
And the less salt you use and the less salty foods you eat, the more sensitive your taste buds become to the salt. And then that's a way of almost weaning yourself off a high salt diet, is to gradually use less and less. So adding a little bit less while you cook, adding a little bit less afterwards before you eat it, and trying to reduce your intake of these very salty foods.
I guess that's why you get some people who would, let's say, eat some salt and vinegar potato chips, and that would be totally fine to them, and I eat them like, oh, it's too much salt.
That's
I
right.
have lightly salted and it's perfect. To them, it's not enough.
Exactly.
Oh, my word, okay. But I see that you also brought other things here that would make good substitutes, if you will.
That's correct. We add salt to our diet or to our food basically to bring out the flavour, because salt has a salty taste but it has no flavour. So we add it to our food to bring out the flavour.
Okay.
So my point is, why don't we add flavour? So you can add lemon juice, lemon zest, the rind. Tomatoes are rich in natural salts. Celery is too, parsley is too, and various other fresh herbs add lots of flavour. And then spices and even wine can be used to flavour foods.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And what about the soy sauce? Because, that's something that when you have on your food, you taste the salt.
It's very salty, yes. So Vital has a whole range of soy sauces, and there's the standard original soy sauce, which is quite high in salt. But because we know that lots of our viewers have high blood pressure, we've got 3 other variants that are lower in salt. The chili flavour contains 22% less salt.
Okay.
The thick sweet and sour, 40% less salt.
Wow.
And then my favourite, the garlic, ginger and sesame, contains 50% less salt. So it's nice to know about these extra flavours added to the soy sauces, and that reduces the amount of salt that we had to put into these sauces.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I think that would be a good option.
And just a quick last question. What are the dangers of taking too much salt? Because I heard of someone who once ate a kilogram of salt, and obviously that didn't turn out too good.
Well,
but what are the dangers of that?
I don't exactly know physiologically what would happen after a kilo of salt.
Oh, he died.
But he did die, yeah, I can imagine. Because salt increases your blood pressure, and it also encourages dehydration. So that's why I think with World Salt Awareness Week, the biggest focus is blood pressure and trying to reduce our salt intake.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much for this wonderful display and that knowledge that you share with us every single time, Andrea.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. I think if it must go to me, the only kind of salt I prefer is the Angelina Jolie kind of salt.
Be whoever you need to be with Vital.
Stay with Espresso and SABC3.